like a Hellcat.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where once again it's time for another first impressions video, with today's video being the 10th and final game in my first series, all dedicated to the Nintendo Wii. And I thought we'd end the series with a style of game that the Wii is synonymous for, a light gun game, and I went for the Mad Dog McCree Gunslinger Triple Pack, a collection of 3 light gun games released in the early 1990s. Now, the Triple Pack came out on the Wii, first of all in June 2009 in North America, and then it was followed up with an August 2009 release over here in the PAL region.
Town's deserted. Even a tumbleweed doesn't dare blow across the streets today.
Now, if you're completely unfamiliar to these games, they are live-action light gun games, with the original Mad Dog McCree coming out in 1990, Mad Dog 2 seeing a 1992 release, and then the final one on the disc, The Bounty Hunter, seeing a 1994 release. Like always, I'll be talking about my first impressions from playing the game in terms of visual, sound, gameplay, content, and lifespan, and of course, whether it's a game I'll come back to potentially finish before giving it a final grade.
At that goal. He's well armed, stranger. Bear that in mind. Mad Dog's back.
So once you've selected your game by shooting it at the bottom of the screen, you're met with practice and then the 3 difficulties: deputy, sheriff, or US marshal. Then you can select single player or multiplayer if you're playing with anybody else. Now visually, you have to remember that these games are over 30 years old, which means all of the video footage is over 30 years old as well. And the first game in the trilogy doesn't quite look as good as the other 2, but I feel overall they did the very best they could in bringing these videos up to the best quality they can for the Wii, and I don't actually have any problems with the way the video looks. I love the settings for the games as well. I've got a little bit of an appeal to the Wild West, and I like games that are set in this time period. So in that regard, I do feel it quite appeals to me. But the downside really is the little bits of lag in the video when you're shooting someone and the next bit of video is loading. It becomes irritating and a little bit disjointed, so the game doesn't really feel like it flows very well visually. So overall, there isn't really a whole lot to say. It probably looks as good as it could based on the original source material, but the performance is still a bit frustrating.
Some people were born lucky. You better get lucky or you're going to be dead. You've only got one life left.
So moving on to the sound effects and music, and from my time spent with the game so far, this for me is the strongest aspect of the game. I feel the sound effects within the game are absolutely fine. They're pretty decent. All the gunshots and the screams from the people when you shoot them are great. The voice acting as well, while some people will say it's not particularly good and it's cheesy, I actually think it's got a pretty high level of charm and personality to it, and I actually like it. Now, some of this may come from the nostalgia, I should say, that I have from seeing the second game in the arcade so many years ago, but I actually feel it's pretty decent anyway. And in terms of the music, that is actually good as well. All of the music fits the Wild West scenarios that you're placed in, and I actually feel that is good as well. The downside is I can't actually give you any examples of the music. It's one of these games where it's difficult to get the audio from the game. I can't find it anywhere on the internet either, so you're going to have to just take my word for it that the music within the game is pretty good too. So moving on to the gameplay next, and this is where the Mad Dog McCree collection absolutely falls apart, because it really is the pits. Why is it so bad, you ask? Well, when you're shooting the enemy, you have to time the shot perfectly within a very small time window. And if you don't shoot the enemy within this small time, it will carry on and you will get shot and you will die. Even if you've actually pumped the enemy full of bullets, if you've not registered a shot within the very small time window, you will die, and you will be met with the game over screen and the continue screen and the little video sequence saying that you've lost a life over and over and over again. It is irritating, it is frustrating, it borders on driving you insane because it plays so badly. There's no fluidity to the gameplay as well, because even if you kill an enemy, it stalls briefly before loading the next bit, and it's very frustrating. The game doesn't flow visually, and the game doesn't flow in terms of gameplay. It's simply a very, very frustrating experience, and it doesn't bring you any enjoyment whatsoever. Now, if you were playing this in 4-player, there is chances that you'd get further because you'd have more people shooting at the screen, so you'd have more chance of timing the shot right. But if you were playing it in 1-player, it really does bring so little enjoyment and masses of frustration.
Well, I'd rather be lucky than good. You took a bad hit, but it looks like you're gonna pull through.
So moving on to content and lifespan next, and there's obviously 3 games in this collection, with the second and third game having different routes that you can take via the character selection at the start of the game. There's 3 difficulty settings for each game as well, so you can make the challenge, which is already very high, even harder if you want to. Of course, the downside is because it's so frustrating to play and it brings you no fun at all, it's very unlikely that you're going to want to play through these at all from start to finish. And if you did finish one, there's very little chance you'd ever want to play through it ever again. Now, I won't deny the fact that this game collection would probably be more fun if you had 3 friends to play it with, so you can do 4-player, but again, that's actually very unlikely, especially in this day and age, because it simply isn't fun to play. So in terms of content and lifespan, I don't feel the game does very well here either.
In Chinatown, if you end up stiff, it's not from too much starch.
So like always, that leaves me with my 2 final questions. Is this a game I'm going to come back to and play more of and fully complete? And what final grade am I going to shove it? In terms of, am I ever going to play this game again? No, definitely not. It is far too frustrating, and there are so many other better light gun games out there across many other formats. In terms of a final grade, I'm going to shove it the lowest grade I can possibly give anything, an F. An F for fail, an F for flunk, because Mad Dog McCree Gunslinger Collection is a terrible playing game, and it is by far the worst game that I have looked at in my first impressions series. And this is the final episode of series 1, and we've looked at 10 games in this series. We've looked at racing games, fighting games, RPGs, shooting games, you name it. We've had a fair bit of variety, and as you can see at the moment, there are the final gradings for the 10 games that I looked at, and the order that I ranked them in terms of the first impressions that they gave me. Now, these aren't overall scores for the game from start to finish. They are, of course, based on my first impressions, and I felt Pandora's Tower gave overall the best experience within that first hour and an hour and a half. Quite a lot of storyline, and you can see going down the list, you know, Chocobo's Dungeon was a very good game. I give that a B+. I have actually played that game from start to finish. Dragon Ball Revenge of King Piccolo also got a B+. We had the Turtle Smash Up game with a B. Colin McRae Dirt 2, a C+. That was a very good racing game. I actually enjoyed that. We also had the Guilty Gear Accent Core with a C+, Firefighter with a C, Mortal Kombat Armageddon with a C, Off-Road with a disappointing D, and then right at the bottom in 10th place, the Mad Dog McCree Collection with an F. Now, of course, these are just my own opinions on all of these games. If yours differ, let me know down below. In fact, let me know if you've actually played the Mad Dog Collection from start to finish and you actually persevered with its frustrating gameplay to actually see each of the 3 games through. Like always, subscribe to the channel if you've liked what you've seen here. Share the video, like the video, all of that kind of stuff as well, and consider becoming a channel member if you want to be in with a chance of winning a brand new game every month. Like always, I'll be back in the near future with another video. Goodbye for now.